Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today and welcome to our panel discussion on mobility as a service. Today, we will be exploring some of the insights of the latest study named Resetting the MaaS Idea. And well, let me introduce the panelists very quickly. We have Ingo Schmuckel from Germany. We have Jen Barroca from Portugal and Vicente Segura from Spain, all partners at Deloitte. So before we, thank you. Before we start with two very interesting elements from mobility as a service, and I will tell you more later, maybe we can start getting a big picture of the challenges that we are facing creating mobility as a service ecosystem. So Ingo, maybe you can give you or explain us the main challenges that are blocking or are stopping mobility as a service to becoming popular.
So you all know we've been talking about this topic for years now, and still okay. And I see main challenges from two perspectives. First challenge from the mobility as a service provider perspective, and also challenges from the consumer, from the user perspective. Starting with the mobility as a service provider perspective, it's actually quite easy. It's all about profitability and scalability. So what we see until this point is that operating a mobility as a service ecosystem is just not profitable. I haven't seen any ecosystem operator that really acts on profit. And the second thing is we see a lot of pilots across the globe, across different cities, countries, regions, where they're rather smaller, disconnected pilots building a MaaS ecosystem. And therefore, the model is not scalable. And that also counts into the non-profitability of the system. The second perspective is the user, the consumer perspective. First is how do the users, the consumers, really see mobility as a service? I think they still see it as disconnected, not really good or well attached, integrated systems. So you have different apps, different providers. You have to change, you have to switch. That's nothing a consumer today is still accepting. But much more importantly, I think the consumer is still far too much attached to their individual cars, to their individual car ownership. Owning a car, using that car is still too convenient, and in the perception of the consumer also still too cheap. And we have to work on that.
Thank you. We are at the Smart City World Congress, so what better than talk about public and private, right? The collaboration between the private and the public sector. So Jen, what specific strategies can be implemented to enhance trust and also transparency between public and private sectors in mobility ecosystems?
So there are a few aspects here that are critical, and you just mentioned a few. So understanding the value chain and the sustainability of the model would be one. Another one that is critical for collaboration between public and private entities ends up being clear governance and clear processes. We have supported many organizations trying to enter mobility ecosystems and trying to understand the challenge of establishing a mobility as a service. The first issue is that everyone thinks it's a great idea, but no one wants to be part of it. And why is that? People are afraid of getting released of what they believe is a client. But what sometimes organizations are not taking into account is that they've got a lot of users, but they've got just a very few clients because they don't know who their client is. They don't have any CRM systems. They actually don't do any campaigns, but they still provide services to millions of people every day. So I would say one of the key aspects is to de-risk the collaboration between public and private entities by creating trustful agreements where people can actually understand and where they can share some data, whether it is operational data, whether it is client data, or even at some point create some collaboration agreements from an operational perspective, because that's the second challenge, which is everyone knows that a bus needs to arrive at a specific moment, at a specific point, and there should be a train for the next ride. But then the bus company and the train company not only always want to talk to each other and to enhance the collaboration as well. And that's on the public sphere, let alone not discuss if they want to work with Uber for the last mile. So these kind of agreements where people understand that through the creation of value, you can have a better user base. Through the creation of new platforms, you will have more data that can be useful for your business is something extremely relevant. Sometimes operators forget that they're not really digital platform operators. They are mobility operators. They operate trains and buses. They know what the delay is. That's their focus and that's the main area. So they sometimes rather have a weak IT department taking care of their digital platforms rather than trusting a digital platform that would provide services to them all. And that, again, is one of the big challenges to reset the idea of the mobility as a service.
Thank you. Vicente, on one side, we have the public policies. On the other side, we have the innovation from the private sector. How can we align both of them?
Yes, and thank you, Kati. This alignment between the public policies and the investments from the private sector are fundamental, are critical. I mean, there is no way to scale this kind of platforms without a huge collaboration between the public operators and the private sector. And there are 4 areas where they need to focus on. The first one is to attract the demand. Without demand, there is no way to scale this platform. On a second point, they need to increase the user experience. When we are talking about technological platforms, we are always dealing with customer experience, with user experience. So we need to align the efforts in order to improve this experience. Then we need to find the right way between profitability and sustainability. This is one point that Ingo was mentioning at the beginning. So public sector, public policies are focused on achieving the sustainability goals. That's okay. But on the other side, we need to make the companies that are investing a lot in technology, we need to make them profitable. So and in order to achieve that, we need to get the right balance. And finally, we need to, both sides, the alignment of both sides, we need to promote a flexible and a pro-innovative regulation, especially oriented for the small and medium companies, reducing the administrative barriers and focusing on investing in technology and investing in platforms oriented to attract the demand.
Perfect. And profitability is actually the key, right? That's also the problem. And there are many questions about how to make this whole ecosystem profitable, not only sustainable, right? We can't wait till the public sector invests the money for it, right, Ingo? So we need new models.
No, that's true. So financing the mobility as a service ecosystem, it's both. It's really crucial, and it's, from my perspective, if I may add to Vicente, one of the largest challenges we are having right now. Finding somebody or finding people who are willing to finance the ecosystem. I don't know if there are any cities here in the audience, but we talked to a lot of cities actually, and none of them said, okay, we are willing or we are able to finance a mobility ecosystem. So that burden of financing it will mostly fall on the private sector. And as I said, and as we discussed, the private sector needs 2 things. They need profitability and they need scalability to have really or to be attracted to this system. And this is kind of a chicken-egg problem. So we don't get to a scalable model without investments, obviously, but without the option of being scalable, we are not attracting investments. So we really need to break that dilemma. And as Vicente said, need to create the right environment, and we have to look at different dimensions. We have to look at regulation. We have to look at the commitment of the government, long-term commitment to make that attractive. But also we have to look at the right mechanisms to either positively nudge the consumers to use mobility as a service, or, and as painful as it may seem, to really make it less attractive to use individual cars. So that might not be popular, that might not be really attractive from a political standpoint, but I think that's a key part to make this a success. Once we have that, from my perspective, you ask for financing options. There are a lot of options to finance. There are traditional options. There are private equity investors that definitely would be willing to invest in that area, but they need the right environment.
Jen, would you like to expand on Indo's idea and maybe ways of finance development?
I wouldn't say it's the unavailability of money that kills mobility as a service. If you think about green buses, there has been enormous tax incentives for the change of fleets, and that has happened quite swiftly. Even mobility manufacturers would have very simple business models where they would understand what's in it for them, how much they would finance, what's the benefit and the return, and the operation was feasible. If you think also about then the retrofit of a lot of the even BRTs, right? So bus rapid transport investments. Those are clearly financed by organizations such as the World Bank and others with clear return on investments with three main players. You've got the bus operator, you've got the management of the facilities, and you've got the financial controller. Each one of them has a role, one of them has a value, and they can get their money back and the operation works. So there is not lack of money to invest in mobility. What it still needs to be clarified, it's the value proposition of mobility as a service. What do we get as a return of the investment we're making? Two aspects for that are critical. User acceptance, meaning to what extent can we play a role, or can we make sure that people are going to use the services more? And I would say companies can play a great role there. So instead of talking about mobility as a service as a G2C business, we could talk about mobility as a service as a G2B2C business, where companies would play a role in incentivizing their employees in the usage of public transportation. That would be one. The second aspect, we need to be innovative about tax incentives. As an employee, I am still highly incentivized to have a private car owned by the company, because that's a clear way of getting money out without paying so much taxes. We all do it. Okay? And therefore, why does the company do that? One, it is clear, it has a clear incentive for me. Second, me as a user, I see it as something that is advantageous for me. We and companies like Deloitte have a lot of that. We have a workforce that is young, open to change. We could change and influence their behavior. We need the right incentives and we need the right governance to make that change and to drive it forward. And if you start thinking about ESGs and all the reporting companies need to do these days, you can really realize that there's a lot of innovation that can happen to enable sustainability from the tax and financial incentives perspective. What do we need for that? We need clear regulation. We need stable rules. We need also a leapfrog, or meaning a meaningful increase of the value proposition of the digital tools we're building. It's not just a mobile app. If mobility as a service was about a mobile app, we should not even be here having this discussion. It's about an innovative business model. It's about me having the flexibility to move from A to B using all the different possible means of transportation. It's about me having a package that allows me to move differently on a Sunday where I want to go with my kids on a 30-kilometer journey to a park, or on a Monday where I do my daily routine. And probably I will never even use an app for my daily routine, because I know which bus to take, I know which metro to take. So I'm not really interested in going to the app every day to change my routine. So clarifying the value proposition of mobility as a service, it is also about releasing a bit of the pressure on the digital channels that will bring the MaaS value, but creating business models that will make it work for people.
Yeah. And it is all about convenience, right? We want to move from A to B, and it should be convenient. So I do use mobility as a service, but I still use my car every day. So who owns a car here? A private car? Okay, I would say 90%, right? So Ingo, how can mobility as a service coexist with this private car ownership?
So first of all, I'd like to rephrase your question. So how do you see ownership? Do you see ownership also including leasing? Or is ownership really, I own the car, I have the title at my home? If so, who has really the title? Who really owns or has financed the car? Okay, so that's a little bit less. So what we really see is that traditional car ownership continues to decline. So the importance of traditional car ownership, and I would define ownership here as really having cash paid your car or having financed the car. So you have the title somehow, or the bank does have it. That is going to decline or continue to decline. We already see that in the portfolios of the automotive banks, of the captives. On the other hand side, we see leasing and usage-based models gaining in importance. So that's a trend that continues to happen. It's not gonna, like owning a car won't disappear completely. There will still be luxury cars. There will still be car enthusiasts who really love a car, who say, okay, a Porsche, you don't lease a Porsche, you own it. So that's will remain. But we see, alternative ways of using a car really becoming more and more important. And we see that already, and we've made that in our very clear in our latest global automotive consumer study. About 50% of the consumers are considering not owning a car anymore if there are good mobility as a service options available.
Let's ask.
Yeah.
Who is willing to use mobility as a service? Who would like to use mobility as a service solutions? 50%?
50%, but would you leave your car behind? Would you sell your car for that? A lot of head shaking. So that's a different thing. Cars are highly emotional. They're highly emotional. And one more thing, we just discussed that before. Most people underestimate the total cost of ownership. Most people only see maybe the leasing rates, they see the fueling, but they forget about the insurance, they forget about the tax and all that kind of stuff. And when they then compare mobility as a service prices to that, they're in the illusion that their privately owned car is actually cheaper than using mobility as a service.
That means we need a shift in mindset here. So Vicente, how can mobility as a service provider attract those people thinking about no car, no private car, but mobility as a service solutions?
Difficult question, difficult issue. As Ingo was explaining at the beginning, we have this topic on the table since many years ago, and it's still quite difficult to scale up. And the thing is, we need to close the gap between customer interest and real habit change. And as Ingo was mentioning, the global consumer automobile study that we are publishing every year, there is one relevant data. 63% of the consumers are willing to use these mobility platforms, but at the end of the day, they don't use it. So the concept to close that gap is integration. So when you have your own car, you have all your independence and flexibility. You can use it on a daily basis. You can take it for your weekend trips or whatever you may need. You have all that kind of flexibility. And in order to achieve that, we need to integrate all kinds of mobility and transportation modes in the application. If we are only seeing public transportation like buses or metro, and we are leaving away rental car, sharing, leasing, ride-hailing, and so on, then we are losing part of the mobility alternative. So the concept is integration. And to achieve this integration, we have a lot of difficulties in terms of integrating the different technology platforms and to divide the profitability between the different players. So we need the integration, we need a seamless experience and a end-to-end process supported under a technology platform to be available for the consumers. We need to focus on urban mobility, where the difficulties to own your own car is higher, but without losing long distance alternatives. So at the end of the day, we need to integrate all kind of mobility alternatives in that same platform, and that's not an easy process.
It's a challenge for sure. John, last question for you. What has to happen in 3 sentences so that you use mobility as a service tomorrow?
I would say first, convenience. For sure, we need convenient offering. We need services that work. Second, sustainability of the model. For sure, we were just saying governments are killing mobility as a service with bad quality public transport. So what is happening? Everything is bad quality and it gets free. It's bad, but it's free. Because it's free, people don't complain so much, but it's still bad. So we don't collaborate with private sector, but also we don't make it good. So second thing that needs to be improved, it has to do with this balance between the public policies and what needs to be achieved. And the third one, which is connected to convenience and to sustainability, is behavior change. And the behavior change will only come if 2 things happen. Companies take a stake on how their people move. And second, that we really invest in education and in our younger population, because we're already too old to change. Those are the ones that actually need to learn how to move differently.
Thank you so much to our panelists. You can download our study using these QR codes. So I invite you to use the QR code. And we have a mobility corner right there. So our experts will be there if you want to continue the discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you.